The sprawling junkyard city of Rustholm stretched as far as the eye could see, a labyrinth of twisted metal and discarded dreams. Rook, a seasoned scavenger with eyes as sharp as the scraps he collected, navigated the treacherous terrain with practiced ease. His weathered hands, calloused from years of sifting through the detritus of a fallen civilization, gripped a makeshift metal detector cobbled together from salvaged parts. The device emitted a faint, erratic beep as he swept it over piles of rubble, searching for anything of value in this wasteland of forgotten technology. As the relentless sun beat down on the rusted landscape, Rook's companions, Cog and Rivet, trailed behind him. Cog, a wiry woman with a patchwork of scars and an uncanny knack for repurposing scrap, kept watch for rival scavengers or worse, the zealots of the Technomancer's Creed. Rivet, a hulking figure with a cybernetic arm, carried their haul in a massive sack slung over his shoulder, the weight of their findings barely slowing his determined stride. The trio formed an unlikely family in this harsh world, bound together by the shared struggle for survival and the promise of uncovering secrets buried beneath the rust. Rook paused, his keen eyes narrowing as he spotted something out of place amidst the usual sea of scrap. A glint of iridescent metal, unlike anything he'd seen before, peeked out from beneath a collapsed billboard advertising a long-defunct tech company. His heart raced as he approached, the gritty desperation that fueled their daily existence momentarily replaced by a spark of curiosity. As he reached out to touch the strange object, a distant chant echoed across the junkyard, sending a chill down his spine, despite the sweltering heat. The Technomancer's Creed, a cult that had risen from the ashes of societal collapse, believed that salvation lay in the resurrection of ancient technology. Their fervent prayers and rituals echoed through the maze-like streets of Rustholm, a constant reminder of the madness that had taken root in the minds of those who couldn't cope with the harsh realities of their world. Rook had always dismissed their ravings as the delusions of the desperate, but as his fingers brushed against the cool, alien surface of the object before him, a seed of doubt took root in his mind. Suddenly the object pulsed with an otherworldly light, sending a surge of energy through Rook's body. He stumbled backward, nearly colliding with Cog and Rivet, who had rushed to his side. As the three stared in disbelief at the now glowing artifact, the chants of the Technomancers grew louder, more frenzied. In that moment, as reality itself seemed to warp around them, Rook realized that their simple scavenging run had set in motion events that would challenge everything they thought they knew about their world, their history, and the true nature of the technology they had long sought to reclaim. The pulsing light from the alien artifact intensified, bathing Rook, Cog, and Rivet in an eerie glow that seemed to penetrate their very beings. Rook's metal detector sparked and sputtered, overwhelmed by the strange energy emanating from the object. With trembling hands, he reached out again, driven by an insatiable curiosity that overrode his usual caution. As his fingers closed around the smooth, cool surface, symbols etched into the metal began to shift and rearrange themselves, as if responding to his touch. Cog gasped, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and wonder, while Rivet's cybernetic arm whirred and clicked, reacting to the surge of unknown energy. Their moment of awe was shattered by the sound of approaching footsteps and fervent chanting. The Technomancers, drawn by the otherworldly light, were converging on their position. Rook quickly shoved the artifact into his tattered backpack, ignoring the tingling sensation that spread through his body at the contact. "We need to move," he hissed, already scanning for an escape route through the labyrinthine piles of junk. Cog nodded, her scarred face set in grim determination, while Rivet hefted their original haul, ready to act as a battering ram if necessary. As they fled deeper into the heart of Rustholm, the city seemed to come alive around them. Discarded machines sputtered to life, lights flickered in long-dead screens, and the very ground beneath their feet vibrated with awakening energy. The artifact in Rook's backpack pulsed in rhythm with this resurgence, as if it were the beating heart of some vast, slumbering entity. The trio navigated through narrow alleys, formed by towering walls of compacted cars and twisted girders. The sounds of pursuit never far behind. Cog's knowledge of the city's hidden paths proved invaluable as she led them through secret tunnels and across precarious bridges of scrap. Their flight brought them to the outskirts of the Technomancer's central compound, a massive structure cobbled together from the remnants of old-world technology. Here, the cult's influence was evident in the strange amalgamations of machinery and religious iconography. Salvaged computer parts were arranged in patterns reminiscent of mandalas, while towering statues made of welded scrap loomed over makeshift altars. The chanting grew louder, more fevered, as if the entire compound could sense the presence of the artifact. Rook, Cog, and Rivet crouched behind a rusted-out hovercar, catching their breath and assessing their options. As they huddled in the shadows, Rook carefully extracted the artifact from his backpack. In the dim light, he could now see that what he had initially taken for random patterns were actually intricate circuits and components of a complexity far beyond anything he had ever encountered. Cog leaned in, her expert eye roving over the device. "This isn't just some piece of old-world tech," she whispered, voice tinged with awe. "This is something else entirely." Rivet grunted in agreement, his cybernetic eye whirring as it attempted to analyze the object. Suddenly, the artifact projected a holographic display, filling the air around them with streams of indecipherable data and diagrams. As the three stared in stunned silence, the realization dawned that they had stumbled upon something that could change the very fabric of their world, and that the Technomancer's misguided beliefs might hold a grain of truth far more profound and terrifying than anyone could have imagined. The holographic display emanating from the artifact suddenly collapsed, plunging Rook, Cog, and Rivet back into the dim light of their hiding spot. A moment of eerie silence fell over the junkyard city, as if the entire world was holding its breath. Then, with a deafening roar, the Technomancer's compound erupted into chaos. Alarms blared, makeshift spotlights swiveled wildly, and the chanting rose to a fever pitch. Rook clutched the artifact tightly, its pulsing energy seeming to synchronize with his racing heartbeat. "They know," he said, his voice barely audible over the cacophony. Cog's eyes darted frantically, searching for an escape route, while Rivet's massive frame tensed, ready for the inevitable confrontation. As if summoned by their fears, a group of Technomancers rounded the corner, their faces hidden behind masks cobbled together from circuit boards and scrap metal. At their head stood a towering figure, adorned in robes woven with glowing fiber optics, the High Technomancer himself. "Heretics!" he boomed, his voice amplified by some unseen device. "Surrender the holy relic, and your death shall be merciful." Rook exchanged a quick glance with his companions, a silent agreement passing between them. In one fluid motion, Rivet sprang from their hiding spot, his cybernetic arm transforming into a makeshift shield as he barreled into the oncoming zealots. Chaos erupted as Rook and Cog seized the opportunity to slip past the initial wave of attackers. They weaved through the labyrinthine junkyard, the sounds of pursuit close behind. The artifact in Rook's possession seemed to pulse with increasing urgency, as if aware of the danger. Suddenly, Cog skidded to a halt, her eyes wide with recognition. "The tower," she gasped, pointing to a structure looming in the distance, a precarious spire of scrap metal and ancient satellite dishes that rose above the junkyard skyline. "If we can reach the top, maybe we can figure out what this thing really is." With no better options, Rook nodded, and they changed course towards the ominous structure. The ascent of the tower was a harrowing ordeal. Each step threatened to send them plummeting as the makeshift structure groaned and swayed beneath their weight. The Technomancers swarmed at the base, their chants now interspersed with the ominous sound of scrap metal being torn apart as they began to dismantle the tower's foundation. Halfway up, they reunited with Rivet, his hulking form somehow managing to catch up despite the chaos below. As they neared the summit, the artifact's pulsing reached a crescendo, its light now so bright it threatened to blind them. With a final, desperate lunge, Rook pulled himself onto the tower's platform, helping Cog and Rivet up after him. The view was staggering. The entire junkyard city sprawled beneath them, alive with pinpricks of light and movement as the Technomancers converged on their position. But it was the sky that drew their attention. The clouds above had parted, revealing a massive shape previously hidden from view, an alien vessel of impossible proportions, dormant but unmistakably present. As realization dawned on their faces, the artifact in Rook's hands let out a high-pitched whine. In that moment, suspended between earth and sky, the true nature of their world teetered on the brink of revelation, and the misguided beliefs of the technomancers stood ready to collide with a reality far more incredible and terrifying than anyone could have imagined. The deafening whine from the artifact reached a crescendo, then abruptly ceased. In its wake, an oppressive silence fell over the junkyard city. Rook, Cog, and Rivet stood transfixed, their eyes locked on the massive alien vessel hovering above them. Suddenly, a beam of light shot from the ship, enveloping the trio and the artifact. Rook felt the strange object vibrate in his hands, its surface growing warm. Symbols and diagrams began to flash across his mind, a torrent of information too vast and complex to comprehend. He gasped, staggering under the weight of the knowledge flooding his consciousness. Beside him, Cog and Rivet appeared to be experiencing similar sensations, their faces contorted in a mixture of pain and wonder. As quickly as it began, the beam vanished. The three scavengers collapsed onto the platform, their minds reeling from the alien download. Rook's perception of reality had fundamentally shifted. He now understood that the junkyard city, the world they knew, was but a tiny fragment of a much larger picture. The technomancers' beliefs, while misguided, weren't entirely wrong. The technology they revered was indeed powerful, but it wasn't divine. It was extraterrestrial. The artifact in his hands was a key, a means of communication with the alien presence that had long watched over their world. Below them, the technomancers had ceased their assault on the tower. They stood in awe, faces turned skyward, their fervent chants replaced by murmurs of disbelief. The high technomancer pushed through the crowd, his amplified voice carrying to the top of the tower. "Chosen ones," he called out, a note of desperation in his tone. "What revelations have the gods bestowed upon you?" Rook exchanged glances with Cog and Rivet, seeing his own uncertainty reflected in their eyes. They now bore the burden of knowledge that could reshape their entire society. The question that weighed heavily on them was, how much of this truth could their world handle? With great effort, Rook rose to his feet, the artifact still clutched in his hands. He looked down at the sea of expectant faces, then up at the alien ship that hung silently in the sky. The fate of Rustholm, perhaps of their entire world, rested on what he would say next. Cog placed a supportive hand on his shoulder while Rivet stood guard, his imposing presence a reminder of the precarious position they were in. Rook took a deep breath, preparing to address the crowd below. He knew that his words would set in motion a chain of events that would forever change the course of their civilization. As Rook began to speak, the alien ship above them hummed to life. New lights flickered across its surface, and a low vibration filled the air. The artifact in Rook's hands responded, projecting a holographic interface that only he and his companions could decipher. It was clear that this was only the beginning of a much larger awakening. Whatever cosmic drama they had unwittingly stumbled into, Rook, Cog, and Rivet now found themselves at its center. As the sun began to set over Rustholm, casting long shadows across the junkyard city, the true nature of their world, and their place in it, teetered on the brink of a profound and irrevocable change. Rook's voice, amplified by the alien technology, echoed across the sprawling junkyard city of Rustholm. He spoke of the true nature of their world, of the misconceptions that had shaped their society, and of the vast universe that lay beyond their scrap metal horizon. The crowd below listened in stunned silence, their worldviews crumbling and reforming with each word. Cog and Rivet stood beside him, offering silent support, and occasionally interjecting with clarifications gleaned from their shared alien download. As Rook explained the misinterpretation of the alien technology as divine artifacts, a visible wave of shock and disbelief rippled through the assembled technomancers. The high technomancer, his authority shaken but not yet broken, called for order among his followers. "How can we trust these scavengers?" he bellowed, desperation evident in his voice. What proof do they offer of these outlandish claims? In response, Rook held the artifact aloft. At his unspoken command, learned through the alien download, the device projected a massive holographic display visible to all. It showed the history of their world, the arrival of the alien observers, and the true purpose of the technology scattered throughout Rustholm. The junkyard city was revealed to be not just a wasteland, but a proving ground. A place where humanity's resilience and ingenuity were tested under the watchful eyes of distant beings. As understanding dawned on the faces of those gathered, the alien ship descended closer to the tower. A hatch opened in its sleek hull, and a ramp of pure energy extended towards the platform where Rook, Cog, and Rivet stood. The choice before them was clear but monumental. They could ascend into the unknown, leaving behind the familiar grit and desperation of Rustholm, or they could remain to guide their people through the turbulent times ahead. The three companions exchanged glances, years of shared struggles and trust, allowing them to communicate without words. They had uncovered the truth together, and together they would decide the fate of their world. In the end, their decision was unanimous. Rook stepped forward, addressing both the crowd below and the unseen alien presences above. "We choose to stay," he declared, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Our place is here with our people to help navigate this new reality." The artifact in his hands pulsed with approval, and the alien ship responded with a series of light patterns that Rook now understood as a language. They were not abandoning Rustholm, but neither were they closing the door to the stars. Instead, a new era of cooperation and learning would begin. A careful, measured introduction of advanced technology and cosmic knowledge to a world that had long scavenged in the dark. As the alien ship ascended back into the clouds, its presence now a known and tangible part of their reality, the people of Rustholm began to stir. The rigid hierarchy of the Technomancer's creed started to dissolve, replaced by a new order based on understanding rather than blind faith. Rook, Cog, and Rivet found themselves at the center of this transformation, their roles evolving from simple scavengers to teachers and intermediaries. The artifact, no longer a mysterious relic but a tool of communication and learning, became the foundation for a new institute of knowledge. As the sun rose on a new day in Rustholm, the junkyard city gleamed with fresh purpose. The Scavenger's Creed had been rewritten, expanded beyond the pursuit of mere survival to encompass the vast possibilities of their newfound place in the universe. In the glint of every scrap of metal, in the hum of awakening machines, the promise of a future both strange and wonderful beckoned to all who dared to seek it.